Hey
Hey,
Dee.
how are you? Can you hear me?
Good. Yes, I can.
All right.
Let's see. Do you mind making me the host? For some reason it didn't go through with the co-host. And it says I can't share my screen.
Yeah, no, I just did that. And then I can also, now that we're on here, make you a co-host.
Okay. I just want to make sure that
Yeah, just in case like I drop dead or something.
All right, let me just test this really quickly to see if this is if you can see this. Let's see. Share. All right. Okay,
Yep.
so you can see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looks
All right.
good.
Great. Perfect. Um, so is this a group of coalition partners or community or anyone that wants to join?
You never quite know. I don't know.
Okay.
Sometimes we get 7, 8 people, sometimes we get 20.
Okay.
We've been a little, we were really, really consistent doing these monthly for a while, and then this year I've been a little inconsistent. It's hard to scrounge up speakers for every month,
Yeah,
just with
it
everything
is.
else going on, and it's just hard sometimes. So some couple months have slipped by without one. But I think there's been a lot of interest in this because you know how when people sign up, I think sometimes they accidentally click on join now. And so I get emails whenever anyone joins, like Tuesday night, when
Uh-huh.
things like that. So I'm hoping there'll be a good turnout today. It
Okay.
seems like there was, and I actually didn't check. I guess I should have checked the registration list. I can do that right now.
Okay.
Um, we've had some issues with our Zoom account too. So
Oh no.
um, let's see. What? Yeah, somebody's been hacking into our um, account. So I finally like turned on, two-step verification and um, like extra levels of protection.
Oh man.
So someone kept logging in and like charging our account like for 10 users.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I've had to fight to get our credit back. And anyway, it's just, annoying.
Yikes.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
let's see if I can.
So
Uh,
we probably have maybe like 15, 20 minutes worth of presenting and then question answer session.
okay.
Did you guys have anything else on the agenda on your end?
No, no, it's just this.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I don't know how to get that. I get that. Hmm. No, that's not right. I mean, there's usually, depending on how big the crowd is, there's usually a lot of good questions.
Okay.
So we'll see. You never quite know, but
Okay. I
it's
just wanted to make
usually
sure we don't
it's
go over time or have too little
yeah.
time or anything. So,
I usually try to wrap up no later than 1:15, but sometimes we end earlier.
okay.
Um, just depends on how many questions there are and how many people there are.
Okay.
And I usually put these on our YouTube channel. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's totally
Okay.
fine.
Okay. Um,
And we can share it too on our end
yeah.
once it's up.
Let's see. Hmm. So I don't know. This implies there haven't been that many registrations, but I'm not quite sure with the mess of our Zoom account. Hopefully this is
Yeah, if that actually would, if the registration was accurate.
meeting report.
Excuse me.
Bless you. All registrants.
Oh, there's Courtney.
Hello.
Uh,
Hello.
hello. How are you? Hi,
Good.
Judy.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Dee, this is Courtney. She's our plastic campaigns associate at Oceana.
Perfect.
Courtney, this is Dee Durham of Plastic Free Delaware. And I actually think you went to the Delaware. Did you guys meet each other? You went to the Delaware
At
climate rally.
the rally. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I think you were outside most of the time. I was sitting inside waiting, like watching the whole house, the governor's presser and everything, and it took forever. So I didn't spend much time outside that day, but I came back outside, everything was pretty much done.
Yeah, the turnout was not what everyone wanted or seemed to expect. So
Yeah. That's a shame.
All right, so Courtney, I'll share my screen and just tell me when you want me to flip through.
okay, sounds good.
Did you have a number of people register for this?
For one thing. And the two people that I didn't introduce yet or didn't introduce themselves, I'm going to turn things over to Anna Weshner-Dunning, who is the Oceana Mid-Atlantic Field Rep, and Courtney Milley, right? Who's the Plastic Specialist Campaign Associate for Oceana. And they're based in DC and were huge partners of ours in getting our recent Senate Bill 51 passed, which was the EPS bill, aka styrofoam bill. We were talking about that a few minutes ago before everyone got on, but the bill signing for that is next Tuesday with the governor, so that'll become official next week. We're excited about that, and we were so thrilled to have Oceana's support in getting that done this year finally. So looking forward to working together moving forward. And Plastic Free Delaware hasn't spent a huge amount of time in the federal arena. So I'm excited to learn more from Courtney and Anna today about kind of what's going on down there, get an update on plastic pollution legislation at the federal level. So I'll just turn things over to you guys and we'll, yes.
Could I request that you put your email in the chat so I
Sure.
can get it directly, and also the Oceana people?
Sure,
Could
absolutely.
you put your emails in? Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
In the presentation, it'll also have a link to our emails as well. And I was going to send the presentation around to everyone after, but I can definitely put it in the chat in just a little bit.
Yeah, we can send that out after too, and we'll have Q&A afterwards too. So if anyone has questions, hang on till Anna and Courtney get through what they want to cover, and then we can go from there. Okay.
All right.
You guys.
Thank you, Dee, and thank you for inviting us to the Lunch and Learn. This is very exciting. We do have a lot of plastics legislation that's been introduced recently or will be introduced this fall. So this is actually perfect timing. My name is Anna again, and I work in Maryland and Delaware. I'm currently living in Rockville, Maryland, so not too far away. Elaine, I actually worked with Elaine Tama doing their plastic bag ban in Easton, Maryland. So that was very exciting as well. Let's see, let me go ahead and share my screen. And I will pull up our presentation. All right, let's see. All right, can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Looks good.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's see. All right, so we have 3 plastic bills that we're going to be talking about today that are currently either, again, going to be introduced or have been introduced recently. The first one is the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, which is a mouthful, but we call it BFFPPA, which doesn't make it much easier to say. We also have the Reducing Waste in National Parks Act, as well as the Plastic Pellet Free Waters Act. So Courtney is going to share the first act with us.
Yes. So yeah, as Anna said, this is a huge mouthful. I've heard some people call it BFPPA, which I don't even know if that makes it easier, but so this act was originally introduced in 2020. by Senator Udall from New Mexico and Representative Lowenthal from California. We now anticipate it to be reintroduced sometime this fall by Senator Merkley, he's out of Oregon, and Representative Huffman from California. So everything I'm going to say is what we anticipate, and with kind of more of an emphasis on the parts that we think are the most important. But we have not seen finalized bill text yet, so not confident. This is just what we think based on our conversations with the staff. So this is legislation that will very comprehensively address plastic pollution by stopping pollution at the source and holding companies accountable for their plastic waste. So the most important part about this is that source reduction. So Anna, if you can go to the next slide, please. I think that's, did you skip one? Yep. Okay, thank you. So the source reduction, and this is a phase out of what we've seen as the top polluting products. So these are plastic bags, that polystyrene foam, and some other single-use plastic stirrers, plastic utensils, and probably just a straw available upon request mandate. Because these are what we're seeing polluting the beaches the most. They're easy to get rid of. They're what we like to call unnecessary single-use plastics. And so that would be a nationwide reduction of all of those. It would also require producers to be more responsible for their waste. This is extended producer responsibility. So it would kind of, the hope is that then they would not want to produce them or produce things that are either actually recyclable, actually compostable, or returnable, instead of just these single-use things that we're using just one time. All right, next slide, Anna. Another important part of this is it would have a moratorium on new and expanded plastic production facilities, specifically until regulations are updated to address pollution. So right now, the mandates on plastic production facilities are a little bit wonky, where specifically water and air emissions don't take into account how many facilities are in one area. So I'm sure you have all heard of Cancer Alley down in Louisiana. The reason there are such high rates of cancer is because each facility is polluting the amount that they're allowed under federal EPA regulations, but they don't take into account that if there are 10 in 1 mile radius, you're getting a much higher rate of pollution. So this would put a moratorium on those expanded facilities until we can update these regulations to actually keep people in these communities safe. Another important part would be to prevent exportation of plastic waste specifically to non-OECD countries. So that's the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They tend to be lower developed countries. So right now, the US exports a ton of our waste, and it goes to a lot of countries that can't handle it. There could be burning it. It could end up in the ocean. If you've ever seen one of those really kind of famous maps that people show is how or where, what regions of the country or of the world, sorry, are polluting the most. Well, a lot of that is waste from the United States. So that would be, there'd be a big moratorium on that. And it would also require that the United States receive consent. So there's also a problem where our waste, our plastic waste, also e-waste, but a lot of plastic waste just gets put on shipping containers and sent to countries that have not accepted it. So it would require consent for that. Another important part of this would be it protects existing state and local action. That's really important for all of you that work on state and local action. So you could continue to make stronger policies if that's what made sense in your state and local activity, which is also really important. And part of what's happening in this reintroduction this time is it's restructured to kind of be separate parts. So we anticipate different breakaway bills will be coming. One of them is one that Anna will be specifically talking about, but other pieces of it we hope will be reintroduced as their own breakaway bills. So there is the possibility, if this doesn't get a lot of traction, that smaller pieces will be reintroduced on their own. So now I will turn it over to Anna.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the other bills that we're really focused on is reducing waste in national parks. And there's an act to help do that. Oceana actually did a nationwide poll asking Americans whether or not they support the sale or distribution of single-use plastics in national parks, whether they support federal legislation, local legislation, etc. That could be a completely different presentation that we could give at another time, but we found really interesting data. So this is just part of it, that 82% of Americans do support reducing single-use plastics in national parks. So this was actually reintroduced in the House side on July 11th of this year, and we anticipate a Senate introduction after August recess by Senator Merkley in Oregon. The bill does two things. So the first thing it does is it encourages the reduction of disposable plastic products in the national park system. So the national park system would include the 424 parks. And then the second part is to eliminate the sale and distribution of plastic items in the national park system. So some of you might be aware, when you go to the national parks, they might have concession stands or vending machines. This would help curb the sale of plastic water bottles or polystyrene foam containers within the park. It doesn't include people bringing plastic water bottles themselves into the park, I don't believe, but it's the sale and distribution from the national park itself. So regional directors for each park would be responsible for developing a comprehensive plan that would reduce the disposable plastics. So they would be responsible for visitor education strategies and helping to communicate to their group, their constituents, why this program is useful and why it's helpful, and like kind of a rationale for reducing plastics in the park system. Disposable plastic products, luckily, is defined as a really comprehensive list. So it includes plastic foodware, which includes biodegradable and compostable plastics. For those of you that don't know, a lot of the biodegradable and compostable plastic containers that you might see don't actually compost or biodegrade in your standard composting system. They usually require a high heat system to actually degrade those plastics. And so oftentimes people think that you can just, put it in your compost, and actually that's not true, and it won't degrade. So this is preventing those plastics that are seen as biodegradable and banning those from the park system, because we don't have those systems available to actually appropriately compost them. Also, polystyrene foam containers, so the ones that we're talking about in Delaware, plastic bottles, and also carry-out bags. And then, as Courtney was saying, there are kind of breakaway bills. And so one of the specific acts would be the Plastic Pellet Free Waters Act. And if you can see in this picture, those are not grains of sand. They're actually small pieces of plastic. These small pieces of plastic are called nurdles, and they're plastic that will be melted down and then turned into a larger plastic product. Oftentimes they're found in these small pellets because they're easy to transport on cargo ships. You could put them in containers. It's not a giant piece of plastic that you're moving. They're really harmful, one, because of the transportation on cargo ships. They can dump into the ocean. There's approximately 250,000 tons of plastic that end up in the ocean annually. That's really obviously problematic for the animals that live there, the ecosystem, and especially as plastics break down, they release chemicals. And then if we eat, the fish that have ingested them or that are living in waters with chemicals, that can affect us as well. And also it's really harmful because we cannot see all the plastic in the ocean that does get polluted. It's a little bit different, like we're doing a beach cleanup, we can see all of that plastic, whereas pellets, they're so small, it's hard to really even grasp how many pounds that actually looks like. So this act, which was again introduced at the end of last month by Senator Cardin, Durbin and Merkley, so our neighbor in Maryland, Senator Cardin, this would require the EPA to regulate and set limits for the amount of plastic pellets that goes into our waterway. So through the Clean Water Act, with the EPA, they regulate, sewage discharge, they regulate chemical discharge from, point source pollution, and this would just include that plastic free, or the pellets would also be included in the discharge as well. So it would reduce, hopefully, plastic pellets going into our waterways, our discharge systems, etc. So what can you do? For federal bills, it's really important that we get our members to co-sponsor the bill. So we have our representative, Lisa Blunt Rochester in Delaware, getting her to co-sponsor any of the bills that are going to be introduced in the House or currently introduced already. It would be great to have her name on there to show her support, as well as kind of accountability for Delaware. We also have Senator Carper and Coons as well. Senator Carper, I believe, is retiring and won't be up for re-election. So this could be a great potential legacy for him. We could encourage him to co-sponsor some of these bills and really push them as his last term. We encourage you to either make an appointment or have a lobby meeting with one of your congressional members. We have an in-district director, Betsy Colburn, who's really great, and she's Lisa Blunt Rochester's in-district director. And so I've been able to talk to her a few times. We have sample phone scripts as well as sample templates. If you're interested, you can always reach out to us and ask for that as well. If you are more comfortable filling out a petition, or that is easier and less time consuming, you're welcome to go to these two links here. We have petitions for the National Parks bill, as well as the Plastic Free Pellets Waters Act bill. And you would just sign your name and it would go to your local elected official. This is also really helpful too. It's an easy share if you wanted to put it on Facebook or share with your networks. And then it gives us a number of people that it gives us like a number to say when we're out lobbying and say, oh, 2,000 people in Delaware support this legislation. Could you please co-sponsor? So it does help put that pressure on your congressional members. So I think those are the three bills that we planned on talking about today. If anyone has any questions, let me stop sharing my screen. I can come back on video. Yeah, we welcome questions. I will send around the PowerPoint to anyone that's interested as well. I can probably send that to Dee, and maybe she will. Yes, you will get a copy of the presentation.
Yeah, so we can just do Q&A if anyone, either informally or raise your hand. I guess one question I have, Anna and Courtney, is the prospects for each of these bills. At least, like, maybe the easiest one is I'm assuming might be the pellet bill. I know a few years ago, Congress did take action and ban microbeads. So to me, this is like a logical next step. Do you think that bill has a good chance of passing, or too much industry opposition?
Yeah, I think, there are a lot of people in Congress that just don't like to tell industry what they have to do. We like to think, it's a pretty common sense law. There is right now no regulation on either chronic or what we call acute. Acute would be when a shipping container spills, and chronic is that everyday kind of washing down the drain. So yeah, you would think we should have regulations on these, but I think with the right amount of pressure, we could do it. But there definitely are a lot of people that just don't want to have to tell industries what they have to do. So yeah.
And we're also behind Europe in that regard too, right? I mean, my understanding is with these types of regulations, Europe is, and maybe other places as well, but are way ahead of the US maybe because they have a different approach to the public good and commerce.
And also just to add to that, even if a bill we don't anticipate getting passed or that might kind of be a reach for us, at least it's being introduced and the conversation is being started. And that's really helpful. Even if we know that the legislation might not pass, we still want to put in this effort because we can say, look, historically for 5 years, you know, our elected officials have supported this. We've been working on this for a long time. And I know with, you know, with Senate Bill 51, that took many years to get passed. And I think just that continued pressure and making sure it's an issue every single year can help get that momentum over time. Debbie, I think I saw your hand up.
Yeah, along those lines, along the plastic pellets from the cargo ships, I was curious, like, do we know, like, is it like they're intentionally dumping them, or is it carelessness, or just containers that aren't keeping them contained? And then, like, a second part to that question is, I mean, I'm picturing like international ships. So do we have, like, does the U.S. have authority to tell them? Is it only like in our U.S. waters that the rules would apply?
Yes. So most of it is kind of mismanagement. They're typically thousands of these pellets put into like a disposable plastic bag that are then put into a container. So in terms of the shipping, yeah, it is typically just mismanagement. And we would not have authority under this act that we're specifically talking about to do anything. But our plastic production facilities in the US are on a day-to-day basis essentially washing these down the drain. It's much easier for them to let them into the environment than try to clean anything up. And so it's just kind of day to day, these things are spilled as they're making plastic. Just a few weeks ago, a train spilled an entire container of these on the road. And there's no mandate to have to clean these up, so they just end up in our environment. And I just also wanted to mention, I think with the Ohio train disaster, we have a really unique opportunity this year to remind people that that was pre-production plastic that made that so devastating. And so connecting that to plastics, I think, is a really important part. And obviously it's devastating that it happened, but it is a rare opportunity for us to say, you know, this was something really, really sad that happened, and we should be talking about that.
Yeah,
I had
sure.
a question. Actually, a couple of questions. So I belong to our local Lions Club, and we do Meals on Wheels. And when we get the meals, we do put them in plastic bags that are supplied by whoever, because most of the people we deliver to are elderly, and when they're coming to the door, they have a walker or something. So they have to have something with, that everything can fit in one bag, and it has to have a handle on it, to make it easy for them to just take it into their house. And we've been looking online, for alternatives. We do find that most paper bags with handles don't carry the weight. The handles snap off. And you see these compostable plastic bags being advertised online. And I knew that they were only compostable if your county or whatever has the proper composting machine or whatever. How do we find out if like our local waste management place has that? Like, how do we find out? Would we go through DNREC? Is that who would tell us if they had the capability of composting those kind of plastic bags? Does anybody know?
Are you specifically asking about Delaware?
Delaware, yeah.
That we don't. In Delaware, there's no industrial composting going on right now at all.
There's no composting going on?
No, not at the commercial scale. And
Okay.
so that's something that's definitely on our radar screen. That's one reason why we've started a community composting program, but that's at a much smaller scale for now.
Right.
I think DNREC there used to be an industrial scale composter years ago that was I think running into issues with contamination, and they closed that one down. And then there was a food waste called Peninsula Food Waste Composting just for restaurants that was also accepting all kinds of contaminated material from elsewhere, including New York City, and that was shut down. So there's a bit of cold feet right now to start another commercial level program, but yeah. I see.
Sharon, let me just
I was
jump
going to say,
in for
Tree
a second.
Sullivan is on
Yeah,
our
I'm
call.
late because I was just doing my Meals on Wheels deliveries.
Yeah.
Let's connect later because we're not using plastic bags in the area where I'm going. We had plastic bags, we're not using any bags. And let's talk about some programs that we're hoping to move forward with. Maybe Dee can connect us, Sharon.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That'd be great.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
if you can put it maybe in the chat, your email, and I can give you mine, and we
Sure.
can connect. Thanks.
Tree's been working with a Meals on Wheels representative. There are some pilot programs around the country where they are switching to reusables. So we are trying to make that happen, encourage that to happen in Delaware.
And maybe, and my guy isn't moving as quickly as I would like, so maybe we could chat about that.
We could use some help.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, Tree. So Sharon's email is in the chat, and Diane, you have your hand up
as we speak. Thanks.
All right, thanks. Diane. Well, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm about ready to start up our green team again after a summer break at our church. And we often like to take on some action-oriented tasks. For example, after Earth Day last year, we sent a letter to all of our Annapolis area restaurants asking them if they would consider not giving out a straw automatically, but only if asked. And if we had known about this pending legislation, I think we might have, referenced that. So I'm going to be communicating with my green team again. What is the ideal time for us to take action to lobby for these bills?
I think the ideal time would be now. We anticipate, at least for the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, we anticipate it being introduced end of September, October kind of date range. And right now, August is when the representatives and senators are in their home states. So this is a really great opportunity for you to possibly speak with them in person. And it's when they're doing the most action in the state. So now is a great time if you can.
Yeah, that would be really great. I think they're probably sick of hearing from like large organizations like us. So this would be amazing if you could speak with your elected officials on this issue. I really appreciate that. And Diane, we can connect too as well. My email is in the chat and on the PowerPoint. So if you have any additional questions or want talking points or just want to reach out and let us know what you guys did, that would be great to know.
Okay. Anna and Courtney, at the federal level, for like Diane's question, the main ask right now is to ask, like for Delaware, New Jersey, Maryland, we're all represented here today, to ask our congressional representatives in both the House and the Senate to co-sponsors is basically the main request.
Yeah. And the more co-sponsors we get, it looks, better for the bill. And then others might say, oh, look, this person co-sponsored, I should also co-sponsor, or it looks good if I also co-sponsor. So, and it kind of gives us that power, if the bill were to go to a vote ever. So yeah. Debbie?
Yeah. I was just gonna ask, do you have any idea of the amount of current support you already have for the bill? Because this is being reintroduced, right? It was reintroduced last year.
Break Free from Plastic Pollution.
Yeah. So like, how much support did you have before? I mean, I don't know. Do we have any idea? Or
Yeah.
We're expecting.
Courtney can.
So last year on the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, there were, I believe, 10 co-sponsors in the Senate and 80 to 100 in the House. We would love to get more than that. It would be really great. In my opinion, as someone who works on this, everyone should. We all know how much plastics affects our climate and our personal health, environmental health. It really should hit everyone with something they care about. But yeah, so that's kind of the range we're aiming for with the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act. And I don't know if you want to talk about the other two, if you have an
Sure,
idea of
sure.
their previous support.
Yeah, I'd be curious if you have those
I was
numbers.
actually just looking it up. If you go to, I believe, like congress.gov, and I can look at these numbers if you have any other questions. I believe one of them had about 40 co-sponsors. Let me actually just look it up, and then I'll put the numbers in the chat so everyone can have those.
Yeah, the Reducing Waste in National Parks Act currently has 40 in the House, and the pellets has just those 3. So the more that we can get, the better. I don't know off the top of my head what those previous numbers are. But yeah, congress.gov is a completely open website that has everything you could ever need to know, and then some. And we'll have all the numbers of previous and who sponsored it. So you can say, if you are meeting with a certain person, you could say, hey, well, you co-sponsored this last year, so you should do it again in this Congress.
Let's see, can you see? All right, so I'm sharing my screen right here. So this is just the National Parks bill, for example. It'll show up like this. You can read the legislation, you can read the actual bill, actions, and then you can go to co-sponsor. So it actually has 62. This is from 2021. So you can go by state as well. So you can see who, well, no one in Maryland, unfortunately co-sponsored, but you can see, or sorry, no one in Delaware. But you can kind of,
your representatives to co-sponsored as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'll put the other bills in the chat as well as sending them in the follow-up emails, so you guys can have access to those as well.
Let's see. 12:34. Okay, my appointment's not till 1:30, or your appointment.
Oh, sorry, Gail, I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
I think she was talking to someone in the back. But Diane, I wanted to circle back to your question too. You were asking about the best time, and I assume you were talking about the federal bills, but I also just wanted to ask you about what's going on in your, I guess it would be your county, or would it be Annapolis City? Because there have been a lot of local actions in Maryland. I assume you guys are trying to get some local bills done, and if they meet year round, it's always a good time to work with your local officials to try to get a local bill done.
Yeah, that's a good point. Annapolis has been the city government has taken up that discussion, and I think it was passed recently of no plastic bags.
Yeah, because Maryland doesn't have a statewide bag bill yet. But like DC has such a strong plastic regs laws in place, and I'm not sure about Baltimore, but you have lots of precedent in Maryland at the local and county level that you should be able to get lots done in Annapolis too, I would imagine.
Yeah, we're trying, my green team every year tries to zero in on like 3 bills that the environmental community is championing with the Maryland General Assembly. We just can't overwhelm our congregation. So we look to an organization called Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake that, kind of aggregates where everybody is coming from in the faith community throughout the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And then they focus in on like their top 3 bills, and our congregation tries to support those.
But that's at the state level, right?
The state level, yeah.
What about just in Annapolis?
Yeah, I think Annapolis recently passed a bill banning plastic bags.
So you could maybe work on straws or something there as well. Sorry, Elaine.
Yeah, I don't have my my cheat sheet here with what's going on in Maryland. It's upstairs. But anyway, I think the bill that passed was Anne Arundel County. I'm not sure about Annapolis, but yes, we have bills that have passed here: Easton, Centerville, Salisbury, just recently, just in the past year. my concern is, number one, first of all, as more of our local jurisdictions pass bills, they're not all exactly the same. And some are weak, some are strong, some are not strong. Depending on your local politics. And my concern is on the Maryland, on the state, the more local jurisdictions pass laws, it sometimes seems to me it's going to make it more difficult to pass a state law. And that's just my personal opinion right now. Especially where jurisdictions are getting some money, especially where they're getting tax money. Montgomery County is a good example. They collect, in other words, it's a hybrid bill. So they, if you're going to have, you're going to make the businesses charge. So people are going to have to pay if they want a bag. And so the county has gotten used to getting this income, and they're not going to want to give it up. So, and then when you take that concept from the state to the federal level, and it says state and local actions are going to be protected. How is that going to work? I mean, there are towns in Massachusetts and towns in Maryland and counties all over the country with all different kinds of laws. And in my view, some of them are strong and some of them are weak. So I guess whoever wrote this bill felt that had to be in there. I kind of wish it weren't.
Anna or Courtney, do you want to take a stab at that, or?
I guess I think, I mean, I'll just quickly say, I think potentially if the federal bill, for example, was weaker than the state bill, slash maybe not as environmentally friendly, then the state would still have their rights to have a more stringent slash strict bill. So it wouldn't lower the standards of, say, Annapolis or Baltimore County, if the federal bill was weaker. And if, for example, there was a state bill that was weaker than the federal level, then the state would have to come up to the federal level standard, I think is what I'm.
That's my understanding too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Courtney's nodding as well.
So can I add something on this? Because this occurs a lot in New Jersey. We had like over 65 of our municipalities pass some sort of a bag ban ordinance. And before we passed the 2020 plastic bag ban bill. And generally what happens here is that there's a statement in the state bill that it will supersede all local bills unless the localities have passed something more stringent, which is really backing up what Anna just said.
Mm-hmm. Now, Elaine, to your question, I haven't looked at the federal bills to see how that aspect is worded, but are you saying that you think it's worded in such a way that any existing state law would not be, superseded by the federal bill, even if it's weaker?
Oh, no, I mean, if that language can get in there, that's great. I'm just wondering, I'm just thinking ahead to what objections could come from our.
Okay, you're not actually quoting existing language in the bill.
No,
Okay.
'cause I still have to read it, but I'm just thinking, would there be objections from, to get our senators? Would there be any local opposition seeping up to their level? Because they would be aware that we already had these laws being passed in various towns and states, and counties. But I guess if you did it in New Jersey, that's good news to me. If you got a bill passed and you were able to get language in there that accommodated or strengthened, overruled. What's the word? Overruled.
It usually supersedes.
Yeah.
Supersedes a local bill unless the local bill is stronger, and then they have the option of keeping it. And I think that's, I don't know, to my knowledge, that's fairly typical.
That's to my knowledge, so that's that's how this works generally across the board, not just for plastic legislation.
Yeah.
But
Okay, and then I have another question. Can I ask a question here? It's about the Pellet Free Waters Act and the cargo ships. Somebody else raised this. I mean, I don't know of any place where cargo ships to me are only in ports, and in international waters. So, why, I like the fact of going on the production side, but I'm finding this argument about cargo ships hard to support, because I never have seen any cargo ships anywhere except in the ports.
Can I, this really arose out of local manufacturing, which was, to my knowledge, somebody from Oceana, if you know more, let me know. But they were polluting the local rivers, particularly the Ohio River going into the Mississippi. There's a lot of plastic manufacturing around what we call Cancer Alley, up and down tributaries to the Mississippi, to Ohio River, and they were not transatlantic oceanic ships, but cargo ships going up and down our local rivers, and it was seeping in, and so it was really yeah, that's why.
Okay, so large rivers like the Mississippi or the Ohio or the Missouri.
Yeah, along where there is fossil fuel facilities and plastic manufacturing.
Also, the Great Lakes. There's lots of cargo ships on the Great Lakes. I don't know if they have plastics, but there's a lot of shipping in the Great Lakes.
Yeah, the mention of the shipping was just kind of to give the global context of how much these are moving around. This bill is specifically to target that production because it's chronic, everyday pollution from these facilities into local waterways. Yeah, the Great Lakes are one of the biggest sources of these in the natural environment. There are lots of studies of how much is just constantly in the Great Lakes. So yeah, this act has nothing to do with shipping. It was just to give context of the global problem.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Courtney.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Sylvia. Cheryl?
Thank you for recognizing me. I was wondering what we can do to stop the further construction of these pellet plants.
Yeah, so part of the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act would be a moratorium on new production facilities until better protections can be put in place. So by passing that bill, we would have that.
Right.
Otherwise, a lot of communities, like small communities, have been able to fight them locally. I don't know if anyone has experience that they've.
Are you guys tracking where they're planning these new facilities? And perhaps we can affirmatively seek out people to oppose them?
Oceana is not, but I can have Anna send out some other fence line groups that do kind of track this thing more comprehensively that she could share around with all of the other things she's sharing.
Cool, thanks.
I have a question. This is a little bit in the left field, but when we excuse me, regulate companies and industries and say they can't produce something anymore, you're putting people out of business. And I'm just wondering, I'm not sure what my question is, but it seems like we need some way to transition those people into other ways that they can learn or earn a living or produce things, or whatever. It's just something I'm throwing out there that I was thinking of, that because that's that's why people would resist, because it's their living.
Yeah, no, and that is a reality too. As far as I know, the bill is kind of putting a moratorium on future productions of new plastic plants until there are more stringent regulations. Like we have regulations on like what is it? Like they have to have scrubbers on like some of the coal industry so that it's cleaner air coming out. And so it would be something like that where there would be more regulations on future production. So it's not necessarily, I don't think, halting current plastic production facilities and putting people out of work. It's more like new facilities from popping up, and then the existing facilities would also have to kind of up their regulations as well. But if anyone knows or has any other thoughts, please share with the group.
The only thing I will add to that is we're very supportive of reuse and refill infrastructure. I know there was a little bit of discourse about compostables and that thing. We're really supportive of having reuse and refill infrastructure, and that's a really good opportunity for jobs and people working in reuse and refill careers. It's a much safer job. You're not dealing with pollution every day. And so these are just better jobs to transition people to if they were previously working in plastic production.
What is that exactly? A refill and reuse?
Yeah, so a great example of it is this company called Don't Waste Durham out of North Carolina. And it's the best way to describe it is you go to a restaurant and you get takeout, and it comes in a glass container that can be washed and reused. You go home, you eat your takeout, nothing's disposable, but you take the fork and the container that they gave you, and instead of putting it in a curbside recycling bin, you put it in your curbside reuse bin. So once a week or however often, you take that bin out, and they come and collect it, and it goes to a central washing facility where they wash and sanitize everything, and then it's redistributed out to the restaurants and whatever other companies are using this refill and reuse structure. And you're
What's the
able
name
to,
of the what's the name of the service?
yeah, so this one is Don't Waste Durham. It's in Durham, North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so this is just one really good example. I just know them and have heard the woman who started it speak a lot. There are other smaller initiatives that do similar things, but this is kind of the future we're envisioning, where you can create these smaller circular economies where things are reused and you don't have to go to another disposable system. But then you have people that need to be the couriers to pick up these things, and people to work in these facilities and then return them to the restaurants and whatever else is going to use them. And these are just better for the environment, better for everyone that's working in them. And that's kind of the vision we see.
That's fantastic. Love that.
Yeah, could I add something to that? That the bottle bills, there's now 10 states with bottle bills, and they all create jobs in a recycling, dealing with recycling. And you have the Inflation Reduction Act, Biden's and bipartisan law, which was pushed to, which is creating, I think I just read in RMI, it created 170,000 new jobs in the recent past. So these are all going to solar, wind, and, green type of energy sources. So people can look to that for job replacement.
Speaking of the bottle deposit law, that's an element of the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, right? But isn't that one of the elements that I've heard they were thinking of breaking out to be a bill just by itself, possibly?
We don't know at this point whether it for sure will be included this year, and if it will be a breakaway. There was talk about that, but we are not confident enough because we haven't seen the final text.
of course, those of you from Delaware know that Delaware used to have a bottle bill. I think infamously, we are the only state in the country that got rid of our bottle bill, which used to require a 5-cent deposit, when you purchased a beverage, and then you got that 5 cents back when you took the bottles back. But my understanding is that the retailers that sell these beverages, liquor stores and grocery stores, don't want this bill to come back. So I think Delaware would probably be in the vanguard of fighting such a law, at least from the industry's perspective. But it's definitely something interesting for us to watch what happens at the national level.
Anyone else have any questions? These have been some really fantastic questions and a really great discussion.
Going once, going twice. Any other questions out there? Well, we look forward to sending everybody materials from today and contact information for both Courtney and Anna. And anyone want to get involved in Delaware with our work with Plastic Free Delaware, and we can work together to reach out to our congressional delegation. So please let me know if you want to join us in that effort. And thanks so much to Anna and Courtney for being with us today and the dog days of summer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This afternoon, I'll send you all the materials that you can distribute to everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks a
everyone.
lot.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Keep hope alive.